This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, we are going to put the debate to rest on who would win in a fight between Geo-Force and Quake. A match that literally a few people asked for because Geo-Force is not very well known, I think.
As opposed to Quake? Like, what is she, just some, like, ragtag S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who doesn't even have, like, a superhero costume?
No. I mean, she was the lead character in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., besides, Phil Coulson. So, I don't know what you're talking about. Quake is taking this one.
You have no idea how hard she's going to lose. You'll find out. You're going to learn today.
We'll see. Before we get into that matchup, before we put in the character stats and run 1,000 simulations and find out who would definitively win, we're going to break down the latest comic book movie news which came out this past week, of which we have a few news items, including the news that the Blade movie has lost its director, Yann Damage, and we got a teaser trailer for the upcoming animated Watchmen films.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
Guys, our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you want even more from this podcast? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier gives you access to our Discord chat server, the Fantastic 4 tier gives you 2 bonus episodes each month, and the X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of this show. Lastly, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier lets you create your own podcast using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results. Pitch the twins your ideas via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast.
Be sure to tune into the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network this week, including Max Destruction, which pits your favorite action heroes from film and television against each other. This week, hosts Ken and Scotty are going to review the movie Saving Private Ryan. Great film.
Great movie. Perfect movie. On the Central World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between fan-favorite anime and manga characters. The show is currently on a season hiatus, so this is the perfect time for you anime fans to catch up on Central World's 40-episode library.
And on the Console Combat podcast, hosts John and Dean find out who would win in fights between popular video game characters. In yesterday's episode, which you can listen to right after this one, they found out who would win in a fight between Captain Falcon from the F-Zero video games against Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal.
Visit dynamicpodcasts.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all of the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network.
But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize. A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on Instagram for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week, we asked, what Marvel or DC character do you think has had the most successful trilogy of films, and why? And of course, this tied into the trailer for the third Venom film, Venom: The Last Dance.
Yeah, that'll round out that character's trilogy, and we were curious who you guys thought had the best trilogy. So let's run down our honorable mentions, as well as the No Prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Waldo, who said,
Hey guys, it's Waldo again. So as far as the most successful film trilogy, I'm pretty sure it'd be Nolan's Batman with Christian Bale. So while I may not like it, he was Batman in name only. He did very, very little detective work. And all his stuff was made by Fox, and she showed very little actual intellect of Batman. His fans are still raving about it to this day, so I gotta give it that.
I hear you, man. I am not a fan of the Dark Knight trilogy, being a Marvel fan myself. Like, that Batman was not the Batman that I know.
Oh my gosh.
He wasn't that smart. He didn't make anything. He didn't deduce anything. He was basically a piece of shit. But for some reason...
slap the shit out of you.
People really like the Dark Knight trilogy. I don't know why. Jonathan, can you explain it?
The films are amazing, first of all. I don't get why you wouldn't like the Dark Knight trilogy. It's such a great saga of Batman from beginning to end. You know, it starts off perfectly with Batman Begins, ramps up with the Dark Knight, and doesn't quite stick the landing with Rises, but it comes damn close. Making arguments that, oh, it's not good because Batman didn't make his own gadgets. I actually liked what they did with this movie because Bruce Wayne is not an engineer. Like, it's okay if the head engineer from Wayne Tech makes his gadgets for him. That's not a problem. It's kind of cool, actually, that he would have a Q of sorts in the same way James Bond does. And as for detective work, you guys are smoking so much crack. What are you talking about? Like, he did fantastic detective work, like in The Dark Knight, with like his sonar gear and stuff like that, and finding answers. And you guys are so wrong, but yet so right in that it's a fantastic trilogy.
I never said it was a fantastic trilogy. Waldo did.
Okay, well, you're wrong then. And Waldo's right. Great answer, Waldo. Our next honorable mention goes to Miggy Matanguihan, who said,
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Miggy, and my favorite superhero trilogy is the Dark Knight trilogy. Of course, you know I had to do it as a DC fan, but not just that because of that. It's just like legitimately a really great trilogy. Batman Begins just kind of revolutionized the genre, bringing like a grounded, like serious take on superheroes. Dark Knight is just a masterpiece inducted into the National Library of Congress, and then Dark Knight Rises just like wraps it up really nicely. So yeah, thanks, guys.
yeah, The Dark Knight influenced an entire generation of films and filmmakers. You wouldn't even have the Iron Man movie if The Dark Knight wasn't made, as influential as it was in terms of taking a really serious approach to the subject matter.
You're aware that Iron Man came out before The Dark Knight, right?
No, I'm fucking not aware of that, obviously.
Well, it did.
So Iron Man came out after Batman Begins, which it was inspired by with all the flashbacks and nonlinear storytelling.
All right. You're dumb.
No, you are. Fuck you.
Great answer, Miggy. Our next honorable mention goes to Cyrus Moore, who said,
Hey guys, Cyrus Moore here. And we all know, obviously, the best movie trilogy is the it's the Christian Bale Batman movies. You physically can't get any better. We all know Christian Bale was the best Batman. Most successful movie is Christian Bale Batman.
It's the movie trilogy we deserve, and the one that we need also, because it's so damn good.
It seems like everybody's answering the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah, because it's clearly the obvious winner. Even though it's not the winner of the Snow Prize for some effed up reason.
I'll tell you why it's not the No Prize winner. It's because, you know, if everybody's answering The Dark Knight Rises, how do we choose among them? Obviously, we have to go with the choice that is not the Dark Knight trilogy, and therefore, the winner of this week's No Prize goes to Scotty Macho, who said,
Scotty Macho from Max Destruction. My DC cohorts are not going to like me for this answer, but they will understand. I'm going to say Deadpool. Now, Deadpool Wolverine hasn't come out officially yet, but, I mean, when it does, is there any argument? I mean, the Deadpool series has been phenomenal, and only Ryan Reynolds can deliver it, and Deadpool is my pick.
Is there any argument? Hell yeah, there's a lot of argument. The first two Deadpool movies were good, but none of them even come close to approaching the quality of The Dark Knight.
I would argue that the first Deadpool movie is funnier than The Dark Knight, and therefore better. So there you go. I mean, yeah, Deadpool 2 is a little bit but I think Scotty has a point, even though the fact that he is empirically incorrect in his answer because the third Deadpool movie has not yet come out. But we're going to give it to him anyway because he had the originality to not be a sheeple and say the Dark Knight trilogy.
There's only one answer to this question. Like, it was a bad question to begin with because obviously it's the Dark Knight trilogy.
I will say that we retain the right to retroactively strip Scotty of this No Prize if in fact it turns out that the Deadpool and Wolverine movie sucks, but I don't think it's going to, so I think this No Prize is going to stick.
I mean, even if it doesn't, it's still not going to match the influence and magnum opus that is the Nolan trilogy of Batman films.
What if Deadpool and Wolverine is so good that it wins like Best Picture Oscar? You don't know how good it's going to be.
Shut the hell up. Check your expectations.
Jonathan, what would you answer to this question? What do you think is the best superhero trilogy?
The Dark Knight trilogy, obviously, hands down.
Okay. You're also a sheeple then. Okay.
What would you say?
I mean, there's a lot of Marvel answers that you could give. I thought Spider-Man, the Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy, like the Home trilogy, was incredible. I think it was even better than the Sam Raimi trilogy. But also, Guardians of the Galaxy. I think all three of those films, Guardians Volume 1, 2, and 3, were incredible. And they probably won't ever be beaten in terms of that franchise. So I guess my pick would be for Guardians.
I'm actually really surprised you didn't say Captain America, because Winter Soldier and Civil War are really good.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're incredible. But I'm not sure the first movie compares to the latter two.
The thing is, though, you know why people didn't call in with those answers?
Because they were lazy?
Because those still aren't as good as the Dark Knight trilogy and everyone knows it.
I don't know that.
Because you're stupid.
Great answer, Scotty. You win this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want to win your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, this past week we got horrible news in regards to the Blade movie that is currently being produced by Marvel Studios. This project has been languishing in development hell for quite a while now, ever since it was first announced by Kevin Feige at the 2019 Comic-Con, where we first saw the upcoming star of Blade, Mahershala Ali, put on the Blade hat. Ever since that announcement, I've been waiting with bated breath for the Blade movie to come out, and it's been delay after director loss, after delay, after new writer, after director loss, and there's just no end to this bad news. But we learned that the director that was most recently attached, Yann Demange, is no longer directing Marvel Studios' Blade. And it's almost like the movie is cursed by this point, because it's already 2024. It seems like the movie's not going to come out for quite a while now, that they have to, essentially look for a new director. And at that point, you might get new script rewrites to suit the new director and stuff like that. Hopefully, Mahershala Ali stays with the project, because I do think that he'd be a fantastic Blade. But at this point, everything just seems up in the air in regards to this particular franchise.
Would you hate it if they just scrapped the whole project?
Yeah, obviously.
I mean, we already have quite a few good Blade movies. I'm not quite sure what they could do with it that has already been done successfully in the prior franchise with Wesley Snipes.
We have 2 good Blade movies. And I mean, we've seen what Marvel Studios is capable of doing with characters that are under their purview as compared to other studios. Like, say, the Hulk. I thought Incredible Hulk was better than 2003's Hulk. I think Blade has the potential to not only be an amazing franchise, but also steer the MCU in a direction that it's really never gone down before. Except for, the Werewolf by Night special presentation that they released on Disney Plus a few years ago.
Honestly, they should have just introduced Blade in that short film. It would have been a much better introduction than what he got in Eternals. If I was Kevin Feige, I would scrap Eternals, just scrub that, erase it from everyone's memory, and scrap this Blade film as well, because we don't need it.
We do need it, and I don't know what you're talking about.
We don't need vampires in the MCU. It's just going to make things so complicated.
How are vampires complicated?
How
vampires
are they not complicated?
What?
They're very complicated.
No, they're not. They're fine. It's all fine. People already know the lore of vampires, so introducing a vampire hunter into the mix, I think, would not only be cool, it would be unique, at least for the MCU. Now, Yann Demange replaced Bassam Tariq as the director, and now I'm wondering who's going to replace Yann Demange. I think there are quite a few candidates that I think would make a great Blade movie, and that brings us to our question of the week. Who do you want to direct Marvel Studios' Blade movie, and why?
Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram. Be sure to answer before June 22nd. In DC news, last week we got the teaser trailer for parts 1 and 2 of an animated Watchmen film that is going to be released direct to video, and it looks incredible. Honestly, it looks a lot like the Zack Snyder film, which also looked incredible. And I think that was the most surprising thing to me in this trailer. It was just a reminder of how faithful Zack Snyder's framing was in matching the panels from the comic. Now, this project was first announced in 2017, and we didn't hear anything about it until 2023 at Comic-Con. And yeah, I totally forgot it existed until this was released, and now I'm pretty pumped for it. It's coming out fairly soon. The first part is supposed to be released in August of this year, but part 2 won't be coming out until next year, I guess.
My big question is, why is this a thing? Like, why is this necessary if it's so close to the Zack Snyder live-action Watchmen adaptation? Do we need this animated project?
We do not, I believe. I think the reason they're doing it is because it's been over 10 years since Zack Snyder's film, and Warner Brothers just likes to keep Watchmen out in people's consciousness, as it were.
I mean, we recently had the Watchmen HBO television series, though, that did a great job of doing just that. This Watchmen movie that's coming out looks almost exactly like the What If style of animation that we've seen from Disney Plus. This whole trailer just made me think, like, what if DC were to make a redundant Watchmen movie? That's what this trailer is asking.
Oh yeah? The style of this actually matches the style that was done with the Super Sons movie, if you remember that. So no, they're not biting off of the What If style of animation that Disney Plus is doing with that show. So calm down, okay?
I don't know about that.
The teaser trailer was not that long. It's only 41 seconds. But yeah, every frame is basically like a panel from the comic. So you can make the argument that this is unnecessary since, not only do we have a movie and a comic, but Watchmen is just such a good story. I'm pretty much down with any adaptation. We did receive an animated Watchmen motion comic over a decade ago. And I still loved watching that, even with the live action movie having been made. And I'll probably still enjoy this adaptation as well.
I'm going to tell you now, and I'm speaking on behalf of everybody else besides you, no one gives a shit about this. No one cares if they want to experience the Watchmen story. They're going to read the graphic novel, or they're going to go watch Zack Snyder's version. And if they want more than that, they're going to go watch the HBO television series. No one gives a shit about this.
Except for people who haven't read the graphic novel, who maybe haven't seen the Zack Snyder film, and maybe want more information behind the story that was the HBO Watchmen sequel series.
So like 2 people?
Burn. What? I'm sure it's more than 2. And you also forget people like me who just legitimately like Watchmen and are totally down to watch this.
I think people just need to get over Watchmen already. Like, it was a thing. It was fine when it came out. It was fantastic even. But you know what? It's been adapted so many times now. Who cares? Who cares?
Oh, wow. Someone sounds butthurt from a teaser trailer. That's, wow.
It's just not necessary. And I'm sick of Watchmen, and people just need to move on.
Well, we are going to review it, so I'm sorry. I'll get you a hemorrhoid pillow for when you do it, because from all the butthurt that I'm sure will come out of the review, I will be looking forward to it. I'll get you some cream, too.
All right, cool it.
If you haven't seen the trailer, I definitely recommend checking it out. Again, it's not long, looks really cool, and I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about it. Tell Joseph how wrong he is.
You're not going to get any feedback about what people think about this because they're not going to care enough to answer. It's fine.
I can't wait till I get feedback. I'm going to screenshot it. I'm going to text it to you.
You're not going to get feedback from anyone outside of Discord. I'll say that. Miggy's going to be the only one that messages you.
Well, me and him will enjoy the movie then.
All right. But I think that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and move into our main event, where we find out who would win in a fight between the Outsiders member, Geo-Force, and the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Quake. All right, Geo-Force versus Quake. This episode is in lead up to our upcoming team duel, which pits the Outsiders against X-Force. Now, a lot of the Outsiders are kind of, I feel like, isolated within the DC universe, but they have played a prominent role within that team itself, Geo-Force being one of them.
Yeah, Geo-Force is a major member of the Outsiders. I would say he's probably the third most important after Batman and Black Lightning. He's actually led the team on occasion. Has Quake led S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah. She has, in fact. She's been the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. So you thought you had something going there.
Well, has she been the queen of a country?
Geo-Force has been the queen of a country?
He has been the king?
Wow. I'm really interested in learning about this. Obviously, both of these characters have the ability to generate seismic waves. Geo-Force can control rocks, and Quake can just kick all kinds of ass. If you guys have watched the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. television show that was out a few years ago, you obviously know Quake. She was the main character of that series next to Agent Phil Coulson, and she was played by Chloe Bennett, and she was a fantastic character. She has really cool powers as well.
And if you guys watched the Young Justice series, you'll know about Geo-Force.
All 24 of you.
Yeah, that's 24 more than watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's probably not true.
Excuse you, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a popular show, and it was a fantastic show, too, for the most part, before season 5. It was good. It was good.
I feel like you're trying to convince me.
I don't need you to be convinced. I just need you to be sorry when you lose this match.
And I expect you to die.
No, I don't know. But to explain the methodology behind our duels, let's go with our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ9K, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the contestants is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the character's statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomize the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel power grid from which the DC character's statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 1,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character. The contestant with the higher percentage is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither character should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations would play out beat for beat. And I believe it's my turn to go first with the DC character's backstory, so let me tell you about Geo-Force. Now, within the DC Comics universe, nestled between Luxembourg, Belgium, and France, exists the small fictional country of Markovia, ruled by a monarchy until it was overthrown by the Nazis during World War II. When the Nazis were defeated, their occupation of Markovia ended, and the monarchy was restored, with its rightful king, Victor Markov, returned to the throne. King Markov ruled over Markovia and eventually sired 2 sons, Gregor and Brian, and an illegitimate daughter named Tara, who was raised in America to spare the throne any embarrassment. You can learn more about Tara in our Tara vs. Avalanche Duel episode. In a land consisting primarily of farmers and miners, Markovia had no superpowered champion to call their own, and in an effort to protect the country against any superpowered threats, as well as bolster the power of the royal family, Markovia's chief royal scientist, Dr. Helga Jace, began genetic research to find and trigger a potential metagene within the Markovs. After a successful experiment on Tara, which imbued her with geokinetic metahuman ability, the illegitimate princess was sent back to America, where she eventually teamed up with the villain Deathstroke to infiltrate the Teen Titans, which you can learn more about in our Titans vs. X-Men Team Duel episode. Meanwhile, the former Nazi Baron Frederick de Lam, who was instituted as Markovia's ruler by the Germans during its World War II occupation, also lived in exile from Markovia, conspiring to overthrow its monarchy and return to power, while also granting him access to a hidden vault within Castle Markov that contained a secret Nazi weapon. Under the nom de guerre of Baron Bedlam, he hired mercenaries to secretly and successfully stage a violent revolution within Markovia, resulting in King Markov being fatally wounded. Prince Gregor assumed his father's throne, though he refused to undergo Dr. Helga Jace's metagene experiment, as he wasn't keen on becoming a quote-unquote freak like his sister Tara, and he believed Dr. Jace's funding should go to weapons for his army instead. His brother, Prince Brian, however, believed in Dr. Jace's research and agreed to undergo her metagene procedure to help protect his country. A procedure that harnessed the energy of the planet itself, which Dr. Jace referred to as the Geo-Force. The procedure was nearly interrupted by revolutionaries, however, and Brian was shot immediately upon its completion. Quickly buried alive in an unmarked grave to prevent him from becoming a martyr, Brian's new powers drew healing strength from the ground, and he emerged from his grave only to find that Baron Bedlam had forced Dr. Jace to perform the Geo-Force procedure on him as well, though she failed to inform him that his powers would be unstable and temporary, as he wasn't of the royal bloodline of the Markovs. Alongside Batman, Black Lightning, Metamorpho, Halo, and Katana, Prince Brian was able to repel Baron Bedlam's invasion of Markovia, with the final duel between Brian and Bedlam ending when Bedlam's powers disappeared, just as he was levitating a giant boulder over his head that he intended to crush Brian with. With Baron Bedlam dead and peace restored to Markovia, Prince Brian agreed to join the other heroes in Gotham City to form a new team known as the Outsiders, not only as a way to show his gratitude for their help in saving his country, but also to train in the use of his new powers. Although initially unused to following orders, resulting in frequent conflicts with the team's leader, Batman, Brian, who took the codename Geo-Force to hide his royal identity, reluctantly learned the value of teamwork. After learning that his half-sister Tara died while betraying the Teen Titans, the heartbroken Brian found comfort in his teammate Halo's roommate, a woman named Denise Howard, while he attended Gotham University. While Geo-Force adventured as a member of the Outsiders in Markovia, Baron Bedlam's corpse was discovered by an evil geneticist named Dr. Ovarny, aka Madame Ovary. After cloning Bedlam and restoring his memory, Bedlam had her also clone Hitler, as Bedlam needed his fingerprints to open the secret vault within Castle Markov. Bedlam orchestrated another coup on the Markovian monarchy, this time hiring a supervillain team known as the Masters of Disasters to aid him, and allying himself with the Soviet Union, which prevented the United States from getting involved as they didn't want to escalate the situation into a world war. Though Batman tried to prevent the Outsiders from interfering, the team abandoned their leader once they learned that King Gregor's fiancée, Princess Ilona, had been kidnapped. Though Brian and the Outsiders were initially defeated by the Masters of Disaster and imprisoned as Baron Bedlam gained access to the Nazi superweapon of a proton cloud generator, they eventually escaped and rescued the princess, culminating in Brian granting Bedlam the opportunity to kill himself, only to be shot in the back instead and Brian decapitating Bedlam. After separating themselves from Batman, the Outsiders team became funded by Markovia, and Brian was made the team leader. Not long after, however, King Gregor was assassinated, and Brian became the new king for a time, until it was discovered that Queen Ilona was pregnant. It was later revealed that his brother's murderer was none other than Dr. Helga Jace, who was in fact a sleeper agent of the Manhunter cult, and she accidentally killed herself while trying to destroy the Outsiders. The team disbanded shortly after, and Brian lived with his girlfriend Denise in Markovia for some time, until Brian was framed for killing Queen Ilona. While on the run with the reformed Outsiders team, Brian managed to clear his name and bring down Ilona's true killer, an evil vampire. Eventually, Brian married Denise, and the two served as regents until his nephew came of age to take the throne as King of Markovia. After joining the Justice League for a time, Brian left the team to rejoin the Outsiders, during which time he faced Deathstroke for what he had done to his sister Tara, and the two nearly killed each other. You can learn more about Deathstroke in his duel against Deadpool. In post-Flashpoint continuity, Prince Brian was the ruler of Markovia, and the origin of his powers remained largely the same. When the country of Markovia was destroyed by the League of Assassins and the Secret Society of Supervillains, Brian vowed revenge against both organizations by assassinating Ra's al Ghul and injuring his daughter Talia while disguised as Deathstroke. His actions resulted in an underworld shadow war that drew in Batman and culminated with a showdown between Talia and Deathstroke, at which point Brian revealed he was responsible for everything. Batman's son Damian, who you can learn more about in our Robin vs. Patriot episode, subsequently defeated Brian single-handedly, and Brian was arrested for killing Ra's al Ghul. Powers-wise, Geo-Force possesses powers derived from the planet itself, allowing him to generate gravitational fields that can make objects heavier or lighter, in effect giving him increased durability and strength. He also possesses geokinesis, allowing him to levitate, move, and shape the earth around him, as well as lava, which he could also shoot from his hands as beams of molten rock, flames, or waves of heat. Combining gravity manipulation with heat propulsion allows Geo-Force to fly at fast speeds, though for short periods of time, as his powers diminish the longer he's out of contact with the ground. When underground, he can heal his wounds and survive without food or air. Lastly, he is also a skilled hand-to-hand combatant. That is Geo-Force.
Madam Ovary, really?
You know, I'm not proud of it.
Somebody in the comic book writing bullpen was just out of ideas that day.
It kind of seems like they wanted to see if they could get away with it, and they did, and that's a shame.
That is a shame. But to help us move past that atrocious writing, let's go ahead and get into the backstory of Quake. Now, Daisy Johnson was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, to Calvin Szabo and Kim Johnson. Her father, Calvin, was an Avengers villain also known as Mr. Hyde, who, prior to Daisy's birth, had developed a serum known as the Hyde formula that could drastically enhance his body mass and strength within seconds, though it came with the side effect of making him prone to savage anger. In the process of developing the Hyde formula, Calvin had performed numerous experiments on himself, inadvertently altering his own DNA. Daisy's mother, Kim, was an inhuman prostitute who Calvin frequented, and who gave Daisy up for adoption immediately after her birth. Daisy was taken in by foster parents who named her Corey Stutter, and though Daisy showed signs of high intelligence growing up, her troubled nature resulted in her dropping out of high school to fend for herself. While committing an act of theft, Daisy's powers suddenly manifested and she discovered she could generate seismic vibrations when anxious. She was unable to control these new abilities and was soon discovered by the international peacekeeping and espionage organization known as S.H.I.E.L.D. Though they initially believed Daisy was a mutant, S.H.I.E.L.D. later discovered that due to her father's genetic experimentation, Daisy's inhuman powers were able to manifest without the need for Terrigen, a substance used by the Inhuman race to trigger their latent abilities. You can learn more about Inhumans and Terrigenesis in our Shazam vs. Black Bolt Duel episode. Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., took notice of Daisy's potential and had her trained with S.H.I.E.L.D. to become an agent. She excelled at the organization and quickly rose through the ranks, honing her abilities and completing numerous successful field missions, often partnered with S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Phil Coulson. Eventually, Daisy went on to become one of Nick Fury's most trusted operatives, taking on the codename Quake and getting level 10 security clearance, the only other field agent beside Black Widow to ever do so. Daisy was tasked with her biggest, most secretive mission yet when Nick Fury asked her to accompany heroes such as Captain America, Black Widow, Daredevil, Spider-Man, Luke Cage, and Wolverine in a top-secret coup of the nation of Latveria. At the time, Latveria's monarch, Dr. Doom, was trapped in hell due to dark bargains he had made earlier. Latveria's new prime minister, named Lucia von Bardas, was covertly funding America's supervillains as a way to wreak terror on American soil. Nick Fury found evidence of this, though the government administration at the time refused to act on the intel. Nick Fury found his hand forced and took a secret recruitment of heroes to Latveria, including Daisy, to quietly take Lucia von Bardas out. However, 1 year later, Von Bardas returned as a cyborg with a cybernetic army to enact revenge against the heroes involved in Fury's operation. Daisy and the others fought to disable a bomb that Von Bardas used to try and destroy New York City, and Daisy herself destroyed the cyborg threat. You can learn more about Latveria and Dr. Doom in his duel against Superman, and more about Nick Fury in his duel against Rick Flag. When Nick Fury's Latverian coup came to light, he was ousted from S.H.I.E.L.D. and replaced by new director Maria Hill, who removed Daisy from duty. Although inactive, Daisy helped the X-Men fight Magneto on the island of Genosha, where she proved instrumental in knocking the villain unconscious by inducing vibrations in his brain. Not long after, Nick Fury returned to draft Daisy into his covert team of secret warriors to fight clandestine threats. This included the secret invasion of alien Skrulls on Earth and stopping secret cells of the evil organization Hydra around the world. After the Skrulls' defeat and the dissolution of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daisy was drafted into the Avengers and was tasked with spying on Norman Osborn, who had taken advantage of the S.H.I.E.L.D. power vacuum to form the Hammer organization and the Dark Avengers. Captain America ended up reactivating S.H.I.E.L.D. and appointed Daisy as its new director, where she was now in charge of the entire operation. However, her decision to assassinate the leader of the scientific criminal organization AIM led to her being demoted and replaced as S.H.I.E.L.D. director by Maria Hill. You can learn more about the Avengers in their duel episode against the Justice League. Back as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, Daisy went on a mission to locate and retrieve her father, Mr. Hyde. She sought his help in fixing her powers, which had begun to take their toll on her body, causing her bones to splinter and sometimes shatter. Feeling affection for his daughter, Mr. Hyde was able to cure her, but then tried to inject her with his Hyde formula, claiming that it would protect her. Agent Phil Coulson took the injection instead in an effort to spare Daisy, and he and Mr. Hyde fought, giving Daisy enough time to use her restored powers to create a fissure in the ground that swallowed her father whole. And that's her backstory. Powers-wise, Quake is an inhuman with the innate ability to generate seismic vibrations, the magnitude of which she can control via a pair of gauntlets she wears on her wrists. Her vibrations can be so powerful and widespread as to create a massive earthquake that topples buildings, or so small and targeted as to explode the heart in someone's chest. The vibrations can be forceful enough to shatter objects, or delicate enough to render someone unconscious. As an inhuman, Quake has innately enhanced physicality, including greater reflexes, durability, and strength than any human athlete. She is a highly trained fighter taught by Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D., an elite spy, and an intelligent strategist. And that's Quake.
So what you're basically saying is that anything Quake can do, Geo-Force can do, and then some.
Can he shatter the heart in someone's chest?
I mean, yeah, by putting his fist through it.
Okay, alright, okay.
In a world where fantasies collide and heroes clash, one podcast network rises above the rest. Prepare yourself for the ultimate showdowns in comic books, video games, movies, and anime. The Dynamite Podcast Network presents Console Combat, where video game legends brawl every Monday. Dynamic Duel, where comic book titans smash every Tuesday. Max Destruction, where TV and action heroes battle every Wednesday. And Sendro World, where anime champions clash every Thursday. Join us as we speculate on the matches and, armed with the power of mathematical simulations, discover who will emerge victorious. Visit dynamicpodcast.com, where we settle the debate and settle the score.
Well, now that we got their histories and abilities out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not the speculation, but it's fun to imagine how the fight could play out. AJ9K, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the characters have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other character is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the contestants will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The contestants must earn victory on their own merit.
All right then, let's get into it. Geo-Force and Quake meet on the battlefield. Who goes first?
Well, Quake is an inhuman, so she has greater reflexes slightly. I'm going to say that she goes first, and she's just going to let rip a wide blast of seismic vibrations from her hands that just tear across the ground and slam into Geo-Force, sending him flying backward onto the floor.
Okay, Geo-Force, he was caught off guard by the attack, but he's going to land gently on the ground thanks to his manipulation of gravity, And once he does, he quickly opens up a fissure beneath Quake that just sprays her with hot lava.
No, because Quake will see the fissure opening up beneath her, and she's going to shoot her vibrations down into the fissure and the lava below her, keeping the lava from like boiling up and spilling out. And the downward blast is just going to propel her away from the fissure. And when the lava does come out of it, she's going to use her vibrations to like guide the lava across the battlefield like this lava wave that's just going to fall on top of Geo-Force and just scald the shit out of him.
Dude, he literally walks through lava and like shoots it out of his hands.
What?
He's not going to be hurt by it. All right. So instead of getting scalded, he's just going to blast that wave coming at him with a torrent of his own lava that then crashes right into Quake. So now she's burned up.
No, because Quake's going to shake the ground beneath her and cause a convergence so that this giant piece of land just juts up right in front of her, and she uses that as a shield. So the lava never reaches her. Quake is going to blast herself into the air again, sending herself over to Geo-Force, and she crash lands right on top of him, legs first, where she does like the Black Widow Lucha Libre style flip, and she just flips him onto the ground, onto his back.
Okay, so as she's about to land on him, suddenly though, she's just floating in the air right above him because he nullified the gravity around her so that she can't land. So now she's just trapped in the air, and he's gonna summon a giant fist made of rock to shoot up from the ground beneath her and just uppercut her right into the sky.
No, because as she's stuck in midair with this stone fist beneath her, she's gonna like force blast, karate chop this giant fist in half as it rises up, and the shockwaves that she generates to break the stone fist in half also shakes the ground beneath Geo-Force, and that causes him to lose his concentration. So he drops her, and her gravity is restored, and she lands on the ground next to Geo-Force and just leg sweeps him.
Okay, but as Geo-Force is falling, he's going to increase his gravity so that he actually slams into the ground hard enough to generate this massive crater that Quake is also going to fall into. And at the bottom of this deep crater, Geo-Force is going to levitate all of the rock shrapnel that's all around them, and he's just going to send it flying at Quake, just pummeling her with it nonstop, essentially stoning her to death.
Now, Quake is just going to disintegrate all these stones flying at her one by one. They just turn into dust. And she's just like really annoyed by this point, just dealing with Geo-Force. So she continues by disintegrating Geo-Force's nuts, turning those into powder.
No!
And he's like, oh my god, my nuts!
Oh no. Okay. So Geo-Force, he's gonna drop instantly to the ground.
Yep.
And actually he's gonna like drop into the ground. It's just gonna envelop him and bury him. And underground, he's able to rapidly heal and regenerate his balls.
What?
And Quake, she's gonna be busy trying to climb out of this giant crater that he created. But it's too fucking late. It's super volcano time, right? So this is basically a huge lava bomb that just decimates everything around it for miles. No way she could escape in time. So she dead.
I don't think so. I mean, if Geo-Force is busy hiding like a punk ass deep underground, that's also Quake's domain. Quake is gonna shake the ground beneath her so hard that it pummels Geo-Force to death. Just like he's going to get rattled around down there, and his body's going to get crushed into pieces. That's match over.
Dude, she doesn't know where underground he was.
All she has to do is aim down. She just shakes all the ground beneath her. He's somewhere down there. That's where he dies.
Okay, I mean, that's probably a good place to leave off the match. Either Quake gets decimated in a super volcanic eruption, or Geo-Force gets essentially flattened by an earthquake while he's busy healing underground.
We'll go ahead and leave the match there. We'll input the character stats, run 1,000 simulations, and come back with a winner.
AG9K, hit it!
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results, simulations complete.
Okay, so stat-wise, this was a horrible matchup.
Well, I thought it would kind of turn out the same way as Terra versus Avalanche, but there were a lot of notable differences between Avalanche and Quake, as well as some notable differences between Terra and Geo-Force, surprisingly.
Yeah, Geo-Force not only has all of the abilities of Terra, but he also has the added benefit of being able to control lava and heat and gravity as well.
Yeah, was pretty dumb. I mean, Quake is a powerhouse. Both of these guys are, off the charts in terms of damage level and the amount of destruction that they're able to cause. They're both pretty comparable when it comes to things, like fighting skill, evasiveness, range. We said Geo-Force had the edge, though, when it came to things like perception.
Because he could sense things underground.
Yeah, and durability, because I guess he can increase his own personal mass by increasing his gravity.
Right. We also said he had the edge when it came to versatility and when it came to speed, because he could rocket himself pretty fast through the air.
Well, Quake is an inhuman, and she can run really fast. So,
considering all of the stats, Joseph, who do you think came out on top?
Quake.
You are lying to yourself.
No.
Do not lie to yourself.
I have my reasons.
Oh yeah? What are they?
They're personal reasons.
Okay. Well, what did the Instagram poll say?
I don't fucking know.
What are you doing?
58% of the people on Instagram who took the poll said that Geo-Force would take this, which is surprising to me because I feel like Quake is fairly well known, especially among people who watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Everybody knows, Chloe Bennett, right? In Quake.
They know she's hot, but they don't know that Quake can beat Geo-Force because she can't. At least I'm pretty confident she can't. Let's find out. AJ9K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
The winner of the matchup between Geo-Force and Quake is Geo-Force. Obviously.
What do you mean, obviously?
Obviously. He won 82.4% of the 1,000 matches, or 824 of those, compared to Quake, who only won 176, or 17.6%. This is one of the most lopsided matches we've ever done. And you, my friend, I think have just received a rude awakening about not only the popularity of Quake, but also the power of Quake.
Yeah, she's super powerful.
At sucking and losing.
Those kind of results just signify that maybe this wasn't the best matchup, which is strange because, Avalanche versus Terra wasn't that bad of a matchup. I know that when the executive producers were helping us develop this match, we had also considered other characters besides Quake, including Magma, because she could control lava and rock as well as Richter, who is kind of a similar character to Avalanche. But we ended up going with Quake because she's popular, because she's a badass, and because she can use her seismic abilities in a variety of ways.
Probably should have gone with Magma.
Magma would have been a great match, for sure. But I feel like these results would be different because I think every time Geo-Force would just get his heart exploded and or nuts. Every time. There's no instance of any battle between these two where one of those things doesn't happen.
Yeah, how's that going to happen when she's too busy being burned alive in lava?
She'll get over it. It's fine.
Sure she will. Clearly she won't. Clearly Geo-Force wins, because Geo-Force is awesome. Have fun taking him on again in our team duel between the Outsiders and X-Force.
Oh, I can't wait to. Can't wait to
lose? I bet. But that does it for this duel. AG9K, help close us out.
Thanks for listening to Dynamic Duel. Visit the show's website at dynamicduel.com and follow us on Instagram at Dynamic Duel Podcast. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/dynamicduel and joining a tier that works for you, or by rating and reviewing Dynamic Duel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website. Don't forget to listen to the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network, including Max Destruction, Senjo World, and Console Combat.
In our next episode, it's going to be another duel episode that will be a tie-in to our upcoming team duel. Next week, we're going to find out who would win in a fight between Halo, who is an Outsiders character, against Power Pack, who is a group of superhero kids who were pretty popular with Marvel back in the day. I think their popularity has waned a little bit, but they're pretty interesting, cool characters.
Yeah, I don't know really anything about them. I just know that this will be the first time where you have a group of characters that goes up against one of my characters in a similar way where the Metal Men went up against Colossus in that duel episode.
Right. We'll figure out how to do the stats when the time comes.
That's future us's problem.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson,
John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Brandon Estergard,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Scott Camacho,
Gil Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Andrew Schunk,
Dean Maleski,
Devin Davis,
and Joseph Kirsting for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
up, and away!
True believers.
I think I win because paper beats rock and I got that paper, baby.